Coming up this week, we get your observations on the U.S. airstrike in Syria. Also, what are the biggest challenges facing Canada today? This and much more to come. Hitting the streets, this is Outburst. Hello and welcome to Outburst. I'm Glenn McGuinness. Earlier this month, the United States conducted an airstrike on a military base in Syria. The reasoning behind this were allegations that Syria used chemical weapons on its own people. The U.S. says it's looking to degrade Syria's ability to conduct any future chemical weapon attacks. The Canadian government was briefed about an hour before it happened, and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says Canada fully supports the mission. But do you? Our question. Do you agree with Canada supporting the U.S. airstrike on Syria?
Not even a little bit. I think that there's more sensible ways to solve differences than by bombing people.
For me, I feel it's complicated because I feel there needs to be some kind of intervention in Syria. What's been happening there is horrendous, but I don't agree with Trump taking unilateral action and doing what he did.
Yes, because Assad shouldn't be able to do whatever he's doing out there, and they need to follow through on the line that Obama said he'd put in the sand.
Absolutely. I think it's a duty of the United States to perform those strikes, and it's also a duty of Canada to support its closest ally.
Syria, yes, I support it actually. Just because they have to do the war on terrorism has to be fought. It's not going to be an easy battle, so the tough decisions have to be made, and unfortunately, those decisions are bombing, I believe, actually. So getting more troops on the ground isn't the right answer for me, so I support that decision.
I think it's something that needs to be done, but it's a complicated situation, and I think we need a bit more facts before we right away support an action of an ally.
I don't know. I think it's going to start a bigger war, and there's certain things that you shouldn't put your nose in. I do agree that we should have our country help the Syrians, and I'd rather have them help them here than having bombing. I don't want to get caught in any bombing backfires on us, you know?
Well, it's a complicated situation because there's so many players in that situation, and what they're doing there is unfortunate and wrong. What is the right solution to this question? Everybody has an idea, and something has to be done to protect the people that are suffering there. I believe that Canada doing something is better than doing nothing at all, because the alternative is just letting them sit. Now, airstrikes is not the best thing. I don't know, but somebody has to get rid of the quotation marks bad guys and prevent stuff from further escalating. So
they don't really have a huge choice. They can waffle on it, but if the United States is supporting, they almost are in a position, if they're an ally, they have to do the same thing.
Depends on what you mean by support. Like, they've got support troops within Syria, sort of thing, but they're not. The airstrikes, I don't think I agree with.
Probably because what? They're not effective?
They're random, and there's a lot of collateral damage.
I think Canada is proud, or was proud, of being peacekeepers. I think we had won a lot of respect worldwide for being peacekeepers. I think it is dangerous for us to be following the U.S. Commander-in-Chief's policy at this particular time.
We have to support everyone. Every country has to support USA against their air force in Syria, because we have to save the human being. First of all, what happened to the kids, it's not acceptable to the all.
Absolutely.
Why?
Because it was a moral outrage. It wasn't really an act of war. It was basically saying, this is too much. And I think as Canadians who are basically liberal and involved very much with human rights, that it was the absolute right thing to do. Limited, strategic, boom.
Something needs to be done. I haven't seen any action on the UN's front. In my opinion, that's effective enough, and with the migrant crisis continues, and bigger action is needed.
pretty controversial topic, isn't it? You know, wars and are such a tragic element in our world today. It's frightening to think that anybody would initiate such a drastic move to remedy, you know, a very serious problem. I'm not in agreement with that option. I think it's unreasonable. I think it's dangerous. I think it's reflective of a U.S. stance that's just unreasonable, and I just can't accept it as being. It's just it's improper. It's just very, very, very regrettable. It's very regrettable.
No.
Why?
Because I think it will make the situation worse. I think it's more a thing that the Trump administration is doing to deflect from their own chaos and their incompetence in the White House. They fired, I think it was 50 cruise missiles, and from what I understand, the base was operational within a couple hours, and it was kind of a useless strike, though. You know, they got to wave the flag and do that sort of thing that they always do in the United States to deflect from reality.
Which Progressive Conservative Party leader placed second to Pierre Trudeau in 3 federal elections? Joe Clark, Robert Stanfield, John Diefenbaker. Clark, Stanfield, Diefenbaker.
Stanfield.
Diefenbaker.
Diefenbaker.
I think it's Stanfield.
Stanfield, I guess. Not sure. I'm gonna go with Stanfield.
Robert Stanfield.
Joe Clark.
Oh, I have
Robert
to answer
Stanfield?
too?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go with what he said, Robert Stanfield.
It is Robert Stanfield.
Yes.
Cool.
Perfect.
Very good. In the 1968, 1972, and 1974 federal elections, Robert Stanfield's Progressive Conservatives were defeated by Pierre Trudeau's Liberals. Stanfield became known as the best Prime Minister Canada never had. The threat of terror is always evolving, and with the help of technology, eluding the authorities is something that is becoming increasingly frustrating to law enforcement. Even though the police do have sophisticated tools to catch criminals, gaining access to their privacy is something that might require a judicial review, which could slow down the process. So, should police have a clearer path to suspected criminals? Our question: should law enforcement have more powers for the sake of national security?
I believe that sometimes we take individual rights too far and forget the collective right of society to be safe. And yeah, I can't give you any specifics, but I think in general we're a little bit too hard on our policemen who are really trying to do a difficult job. And usually things happen in the middle of the night and, you know, places where perhaps people shouldn't be hanging out. And, you know, I don't really know anything about that. I'm an old guy. But, you know, when the police have to do a very difficult job, I think you have to support them. Not saying there's not problems from time to time, but I think generally our police do a great job, and we should just be more conscious of the difficulties they face.
Absolutely. I'm ex-law enforcement, so that's an easy one for me. Yeah, I do believe so, especially when it comes to, you know, cybersecurity issues. I think law enforcement should have, with the special authorization and judicial orders, they should have more powers to look at data from a national perspective to protect our country. Absolutely.
It's a topic that's so emotional for me. I'm sorry, but I just think the system's broken. They have to do something to fix it. We need some strong politicians. John Tory, if you're listening, get up there and take a strong stance and you know, let's get some movement.
These are hard questions. I am a believer in law enforcement having more powers, as long as there's the institutions to make sure that they're on track and not abusing those powers. So if we do allow law enforcement to have more powers, there needs to be more auditors in place to make sure that they are following the guidelines and making sure that they're acting with integrity and yeah, not abusing that extra power that we give them.
Well, I think they already have enough powers, and I think, you know, for me, I'm more concerned about maintaining, you know, habeas corpus and privacy, and they have to go to a judge and get a warrant, you know, to look at anybody's emails and that. I mean, clearly in a digital kind of world, you need to have different security measures. I really think we need to beef up cybersecurity from a national security standpoint. But, you know, this terrorist thing is like it's over-exaggerated. I mean, what's the chance of me being injured by a terrorist attack as much as me being hit by lightning? So maybe we should spend more time like curing cancer and, you know, Alzheimer's, or doing something about the environment, which are real threats.
I've never felt at risk, so I don't feel that they need any more power.
I think it has enough power now that the legislation that was put in place a couple of years ago certainly gives, I think, enough power, possibly too much power.
Fortunately, police or either other than police people, we have to talk about the law, regular and regulation. I mean, if it's strong and people will respect the law, everything will have a safe and will be fair enough to the all. Policemen, it should be a part of saving the people, also serving the people. That means if we are respecting the law, we will respect the policemen.
I think they already have enough powers to do what they need to do. I think that it runs dangerously close to becoming a fascist state if police have too much power.
I agree with that. I think that there's enough power. I think really we need more oversight and control over our police forces, actually.
I don't know. I guess I'm kind of thinking there's other agencies that are looking after national security.
No, I think they have enough. I think they have enough to be able to conduct their, you know, to perform their duties within the laws that we have already prescribed for them. So I think they have enough powers already.
Again, something that needs to be balanced. I think obviously security and safety is important, but individual rights and the rights of various groups must be factored in.
It's important for the community to understand what law enforcement does, first and foremost. With respect to national security, it does make up part of law enforcement and what it is. People need to understand that the primary function of law enforcement in contemporary society is to ensure public safety and initiate court proceedings. And public safety within that falls the realm of international security. So yes, the police should have more power and ensure that, in order to ensure that the public is safe.
I think they should stay the way it is. Too much, then you become too much of a totalitarian state, I think, is that correct? Otherwise, yeah, I think they're good. Just people have to start respecting each other's, you know, laws hopefully will be placed to help protect the civilians' rights as well as protect the police rights, right? Everybody's trying to attack each other to find who's more right and who's wrong. And hopefully as we mature as a society, we'll be a little more lenient and understanding.
National security is important. The individuals that live in this country, that's important, right? The lives and whatnot. So I'd say that depending on how it's implemented, like it shouldn't be just power for the sake of power, like there just needs to be checks in place, yeah.
Which of these former Canadian Prime Ministers was actually born in England? John Turner, Kim Campbell, Paul Martin.
John Turner.
Paul Martin.
John Turner.
John Turner.
Turner, I'd say.
Paul Martin.
Paul Martin.
John Turner.
It is John Turner.
You're killing it.
Look at you now. Former Prime Minister John Turner was born to a British father and Canadian mother in Richmond, England on June 7th, 1929. He came to Canada at the age of 3. Canada's universal health care system is the envy of many countries around the world, but it's not without its problems. Wait times are, of course, an issue, as well as doctor shortages in many parts of the country. So what plan can you share to help fix the problem? Our question: what are your ideas to improve Canada's healthcare system?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think it should be nationalized. It shouldn't be a provincial issue anymore. Get some consistency across the country.
What's been your experience with the healthcare system?
Fine. A little slow on some things, but actually with the new Oakville hospital, the services that you get up there are pretty good, actually, very quick.
The emergency wait times are ridiculous. The emergency rooms need to be expanded, they need to be bigger. There's people still sleeping on stretchers in hospital hallways, such as a Joseph Brand Hospital in Burlington, and that needs to be approved upon.
What has been your experience personally with the healthcare system?
Whenever I've been with a relative going into emergency and they've stayed the night, they were on a stretcher in the hallway for 48 hours before they even got a room. And this is in one of the richest communities in the country.
I think supporting the doctors and nurses more. My boyfriend a couple years ago was very critically ill, and we went through a very, very difficult time with that. And I could just see that the nurses were working like basically two people's jobs. They seemed to be really, really stretched with basically it didn't seem like they had enough resources for the job they needed to do, and that really hit home for me because I felt it was affecting his care. So I think yeah, supporting doctors and nurses should be a top priority.
I want a government that's going to take on the vested interests like Big Pharma and the doctors who are real, I think, big part of that problem, and to really democratize healthcare. I don't think we can continue to afford the way to do things we're doing things.
Better delivery system, and it needs, I think the underlying legislation has to be changed. As it is now, the federal government only supports hospital and medical offices visits type thing. It doesn't support the broader range of services. The block funding, I don't think was a good idea. Anyway, that's going back in history. It needs a new approach.
Brilliant medicine, it's all here. But we have to improve the health care, we need the public to get educated about what it's going to cost to get the good health care. And there's no way around that.
Always we have to give chance for researchers, respecting the human brain, supporting the people who has more smart and intelligence and of medication resources. The government has to make a special fund for those people. Also to give chance to the multinational people to come and do the research. Otherwise, we cannot have a strong health care in each country, not only Canada, all the world.
Okay, I think that one of the things that needs to happen is to live up to the principles of healthcare, that it's portable, that it's accessible to everyone who needs it. And if there's not enough resources for the system, then I think it's incumbent upon the government to find ways by doing things like raising corporate taxes that have been on the decline for so long.
I think universal pharmacare would be a really good thing to add to the healthcare system. There are groups that have been fighting for that for a long time, and it's necessary.
One of the things that is necessary is to connect all the islands within the healthcare system. And, you know, your family physician, the x-ray lab, the hospital, these are all separate islands, the pharmacy. And I'm actually working with a company now to help bridge those gaps and to connect the health ecosystem as a, you know, much more efficient whole.
I think it's pretty good as it is. I think we should expand it some more. I think the one thing is that's lacking, or maybe not lacking, but that's happening, is still a lot of young doctors go to the States, and it's too bad there's no incentives to keep them in Canada, and then people won't have to go down there. I mean, you know, rich people can go down to the States and get care that people in Canada maybe can't. And
I think the organization of how things are done must be looked at. I mean, people always say it's important to provide more money, which is fair, but we already spend a fair amount of money on healthcare. So organization, where the money is going, first line services, as opposed to being reactive, being more proactive, helping people in the community, having services that are at home and whatnot, in order to prevent people from going to the hospital, which is the most expensive way of providing healthcare services.
I'm grateful. Sure, things can be improved everywhere, but it could be a lot worse. So I'm going to stick to the optimistic side of things on there. So sometimes you have to wait 6 hours, but c'est la vie.
When I go to a clinic, I'm kind of shoved out as quickly as possible. You know, they tick a few boxes, they don't take the time, and people complain a lot about how there's not enough family doctors, and the family doctors are the ones that take the time to learn about you, and you know, they keep track of all of your conditions and whatnot. So it's like to be able to have more of them, to be able to support more of them in Canada would be great.
As I'm sure you're aware, Canada celebrates its 150th birthday this year. CPAC has partnered with Historica Canada, who've launched a nationwide multilingual contest to help Canadians celebrate this big milestone. They're inviting Canadians to express what Canada means to them in a 30-second video. And each week, we'll be showing you 4 of them. To submit your own video, visit here'smycanada.ca.
To me, Canada is all about the opportunity to escape and explore the incredibly beautiful landscapes across the country. It is the perfect balance of city and nature in which you cannot drive more than 15 minutes from home without stumbling across an awe-inspiring view of nature. There is so much to see that deciding where to go can be daunting, but no matter where you end up, it will always be beautiful. Canada.
This is my Canada. This is my home. Canada is a country where I can roam around in the mountains like my ancestors did. I love the feeling of the cold in the mountains and how warm the rocks are. The place where I can climb rocks and mountains and feel free.
So here's a question. What does Canada mean to me? Sustainability. Canada means equality and human rights, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, independence, free healthcare, safety, and our beautiful, secure home, with absolute beautiful road trip views, by the way. We are a diverse people. We have all sorts of cultures in Canada, and we have access to travel and culture. So what does Canada mean to you?
Love.
Canada is one of the greatest nations on earth in which to live. We have much to be thankful for, from the freedoms we enjoy, our scenery, our healthcare system, Putin, the list goes on. But with the good also come the challenges, and this is where we go for our next question. What are the biggest challenges facing Canada today?
I think the immediate one is the way we need to follow the 94 recommendations of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, the calls to action that will build a nation-to-nation relationship with Indigenous people, one that will give Indigenous people control and sovereignty over their land, because they're the only ones who right now are defending the earth in a way that it needs to be defended.
Economy and jobs and getting all the provinces to get along, and I find that there's too much taxes and laws between provincial and federal, and the lines in between there are gray, but there's a lot of money going into that in both sections from the taxpayer, so I wish they could streamline that process of it.
I think the economy is definitely a bit of a challenge and a bit of a struggle. I think as well, you know, our international reputation kind of went a bit through the ringer over the past, 8 years, 9 years. But you know, there's a lot more, like things are getting more expensive. You go to the store and it's a bit more than it was before. We're not necessarily, in a better economical position. People aren't necessarily getting any more jobs or better paying jobs and that sort of thing. So I think that's definitely like one of the top struggles that we face in Canada today.
I think more on the environment. I mean, with I guess everybody's talking about global warming or supposed global warming. Concentrate on trying to find better ways of helping the environment and looking at the communities in regards to the weather and stuff like that. So that's pretty much it.
I would say I guess economy. I understand there's people suffering in Alberta in terms of jobs and also all over the province. For new graduates, it's extremely difficult to get a job in the field they want or not compromise and take a different job. Several of my engineering friends are out of work for 9 months to 2 years before they get a job.
There's so many of them. The housing crisis, there's a tsunami of refugees, which we need to support. We need to offer more support once they get here. There's housing crisis within Canada for Canadians. There's the healthcare system. There's remain free and yet take care of our people.
So I think the biggest problem facing Canada is fiscal responsibility. I really have to come back to that. We have basically borrowed our children's and grandchildren's future too long, and now we're going to have to pay the piper a little bit. And some of us older people, like myself, who've benefited from this, are probably going to have to step up and pay more, one way or another. I just don't see any way around it.
Youth unemployment, certainly those graduating are not finding jobs. Those who are in jobs aren't seeing any lateral movement. They're not going up in the world. And as well, the housing crisis. Someone like myself who works in the real estate industry can't even afford my own house. And I'm stuck in the rental market. I can't afford to save for one either.
Biggest challenges? Well, what's Trump gonna do? That's my biggest fear. He's right there. He says all these things, and he clearly has the power to do a lot of unpredictable make unpredictable choices, and he's executing them. That's the next scary part. It's not just talk. A lot of it's talk, but you don't know which is just talk. So, not sure about a solution, but something to be very careful about.
Future of this country is not oil and gas. It's a diversified economy. So our failure to diversify and invest in innovation, I think, is the biggest challenge I think this country faces right now.
How many U.S. states border Saskatchewan? 1, 2, or 3?
2.
2.
3.
2.
2.
1.
I'd say 2.
2.
It's 2. You did well today.
Idaho.
Saskatchewan is bordered by 2 American states, North Dakota and Montana. That's all for this episode of Outburst. Like what you see? Well, you can watch more episodes on our website at www.cpac.ca, on our CPAC TV to Go app, as well as on our YouTube channel. You can also join the conversation via social media on Twitter and Instagram at CPAC_TV. I'm Glenn McGuinness, and on behalf of all my colleagues at the Cable Public Affairs channel, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.